They won't stop me. You know why? Because I know how the game is played, and I play it better. That was the last thing Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett said before exiting the hotel ballroom in D.C., where she just raised over $500,000 in a single night surrounded by champagne flutes, rented patriotism, and smiles too white to be real. By the time she reached the elevator, her face was already on screen. Every screen, but not for the fundraiser for the investigation, and just 4 blocks away, in a small repurposed newsroom, the air was thick with silence and the bitter tang of cold coffee. The war room of truth, as they called it, had come alive. A red light blinked on the camera, a quiet pulse, not a warning, but a promise. James O'Keefe didn't wait for a cue. He was the cue. He leaned into the lens, eyes sharp, voice low and loaded. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett is under federal investigation. $870,000 laundered through retirees like they were vending machines. Thousands of donations, not a single one with consent. He dropped a manila folder on the desk with a flat slap. Final, not theatrical. The folder's contents were already digitized, ready to flood the internet, but the gesture was for the camera, for the millions watching live. 4 blocks away, Crockett's elevator dinged open. Her aide, young and nervous, handed her an iPhone already playing O'Keefe's broadcast. She watched, legs crossed, a glass of dry red hovering near her lips. The clip rolled silently, but the words burned. She looked at her aide, who was still pretending this wasn't unraveling. "He thinks this ends with a hearing," she said, voice sharp but steady. "Tell him to bring more than a folder next time." The buzz never stopped in Capitol Hill. It lingered beneath polished shoes, the creak of old wood, the snapping lenses of press photographers lined along the gallery rail. Today, it carried tension like a current. Room 3 of the congressional hearing chambers was not built for comfort. It was built for confrontation. High ceilings, brutalist acoustics, and enough marble to make even the truth feel small. The flags were perfectly placed, as if patriotism were a matter of symmetry. At the center, beneath lights that washed out even the sharpest shadows, sat Mike Benz, unshaken, unreadable, ready. The chairman gave a curt nod. "No theatrics, Mr. Benz. The floor is yours." Benz rose slowly, adjusting the mic not for sound but for emphasis. Without fanfare, he began, "We know, factually, verifiably, with documentation, that the Federal Bureau of Investigation interfered with the 2020 presidential election. This wasn't opinion. This wasn't spin. This was strategic manipulation designed to elevate Joseph Robinette Biden into the White House and remove Donald J. Trump from it." The room didn't move. It held its breath. A massive slide blinked to life behind him, a facsimile of the infamous letter signed by 51 former intelligence officials declaring without evidence that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation. Gina Haspel's signature was circled in stark red. "It was a lie," Benz said, voice cutting like a blade. "An institutional lie, and it changed the outcome of a national election." Across the room, a tall man in a steel-gray suit adjusted his lapel. He was from the Bureau. Everyone knew it, but his badge was subtle, his expression unreadable. He whispered to the counsel beside him. Benz noticed, but didn't care. "And it didn't stop there," he continued. "The FBI, alongside the CIA, launched a coordinated pressure campaign that directly influenced decision-making inside Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. Platforms the American people rely on, were turned into filtration systems for politically sanctioned truth. Murmurs rippled through the press gallery, just enough to make the chairman glance up. Benz had anticipated the reaction. He leaned forward, hands braced on the wooden table, voice sharper now, surgical. Internal emails from Twitter's Trust and Safety team confirmed they received direct requests from federal agents to suppress stories involving Hunter Biden, Ukraine, and the laptop that apparently no one was allowed to acknowledge existed. This wasn't protection. It was narrative warfare. From the Democratic bench, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett let out a quiet laugh, soft but deliberate, caught by every microphone. Her tone wasn't amused. It was amused at them. "So now election denialism is fashionable again," she said, leaning forward, voice bright and cutting. "Should we expect Mike Benz to start selling T-shirts next? The laptop made me do it?" The chamber split, some with smirks, others with stiff silence. Benz didn't respond immediately. Instead, he reached for a file labeled Suppressed, opened it, and slid out a copy of internal Slack messages from Twitter executives, dated October 2020. The highlighted lines said enough. Crockett's smile tightened. The FBI representative leaned back, arms crossed. The air was shifting. Benz took a slow step forward, just one, enough to pull the room's weight back to him. "What we've seen is just the surface. Beneath it is something colder, older, more foreign." He tapped a document on the table. The projection changed. Not a letter or email, but a title. Crossfire Hurricane Internal Summary File. A seal marked Declassified March 2025, flickered at the bottom, credited to President Trump and former Representative Tulsi Gabbard. "Thanks to their joint release," Benz said, "we have access to the suppressed files of Crossfire Hurricane. They reveal a coordinated effort, not just inside our borders, but far beyond. This wasn't about political rivalry. It was about preventing an administration that defied the global script. It was about protecting old alliances. In that calculus, Donald Trump was a liability." Murmurs rose, but Benz's voice sharpened, clearer. The files show senior Democratic National Committee leadership maintained active lines of communication with international outlets, primarily in the UK. Leaks weren't accidents. They were assets. He tapped the remote. The room darkened, then lit up with a name: Christopher Steele, Expense Report, October 2016. Line 14, FBI-approved stipend, $75,000. Purpose: research and narrative structuring on U.S. presidential candidate Donald J. Trump. "We paid for our own sabotage," Benz said, not looking up. "And we outsourced it to someone who publicly admitted Trump was a strategic threat. Not to America, but to British intelligence." A second tap brought up a quote from a publicized exchange between Steele and an MI6 associate. "A Trump presidency could destabilize our access to Five Eyes operations. It's imperative we steer the conversation before it steers us." Crockett leaned forward, hands folded, tone casual, almost amused. "I'm sorry. Are we seriously being asked to believe the Queen of England woke up one day and said, 'We've got to stop this man from Pennsylvania Avenue'?" The laughter was loud, real. She leaned into it, chin raised. "If we're chasing conspiracies, Mr. Benz, can we pick one with better writing? Because MI6 colluding with the FBI to rewrite American democracy sounds like a House of Cards reject." A few Democrats clapped, controlled but pointed. The press scribbled fast. Benz stood still, Not out of fear, but precision. His next line was a correction, not a rebuttal. No one's suggesting this began in London. But when the ground shakes in Washington, don't be surprised to find footprints in Whitehall. The room didn't exhale. It held its breath deeper. Lights hummed overhead, white, clinical, punitive, catching every flinch. Then James O'Keefe rose from his seat. He didn't look like a man entering a battle, but one returning to a war he'd already won in his mind. His stride was quiet, composed, but coiled with tension. The screen behind him glowed, not with documents, but with a front porch, a swing, and the trembling voice of an elderly woman. They said I gave over $9,000. I haven't given $9,000. I didn't even know what Act Blue was. O'Keefe paused the video mid-frame, her lips parted, asking a question no one answered. Her name is Lorraine, 76, lives alone, no children. Her identity was used 132 times to funnel money through Act Blue. She had no idea. His voice held no outrage, just prosecutorial calm, the kind justice demands, not fury, but focus. She's not the only one. We have documented cases in Pennsylvania, Arizona, Maryland, Florida. People over 65 whose names were used hundreds of times to make contributions they never authorized. The screen shifted to ledger lines, names, dates, totals, rows blurring into a single question. How many donors never knew they gave? In total, O'Keefe said, over $870,000 connected to this pattern. A chair scraped, or someone swallowed too loudly. Before the sound could build, Crockett's voice pierced through, bright, playful, but cold beneath. Are we dragging Grandma Scams into this hearing now? This is a campaign finance hearing, not a nursing home complaint desk. Laughter flickered from the Democratic row, a signal. The room's balance shifted, but O'Keefe didn't flinch. He tapped the clicker. New text appeared. Christopher Steele, FBI Disbursement Memo, October 2016. Payment approved, $75,000. Purpose: narrative construction involving candidate Donald J. Trump. He stepped forward. No podium, just gravity. While American seniors were unknowingly financing campaigns, the FBI was knowingly financing fiction. He looked through the air, through Crockett. Steele wasn't a neutral consultant. He told the FBI himself that Trump's foreign policy threatened British intelligence. He didn't hide it. He advertised it. The screen flared, a quote bold and damning. Trump's approach will damage Five Eyes' integrity. His presidency must be shaped or stopped. O'Keefe let it hang, not for drama, but finality. So we paid a foreign agent $75,000 to protect foreign intelligence from our own president. For the first time, Crockett said nothing. Not because she lost the mic, but because the floor had fallen beneath her. She snapped back, tone slicing like a dagger. So, what's next, Mr. O'Keefe? You going to pull out a bingo card and accuse Social Security of sedition? This is a campaign finance hearing, not murder, she wrote, assisted living edition. The laughter from her party was intentional, a cue, but O'Keefe didn't rise to it. While innocent seniors had their names dragged through digital donation mills, our intelligence agencies were writing fairy tales with taxpayer ink. They weren't telling bedtime stories. They were drafting a political hit job. The screen flared again. The Steele memo, the quote, inescapable. His presidency must be stopped. The room tilted. Crockett pushed forward, hands flat on the table, rigid. This is Fox News fan fiction dressed in congressional ink. You're not presenting evidence. You're staging a screenplay for a paranoid populace, and I refuse to audition. Silence followed, not agreement, but impact. O'Keefe drew another document, leaner, heavier. This isn't innuendo. It's a bank record. It names your campaign. It lists the donors. One of them is a 73-year-old woman who thought Act Blue was a weather app. The air shifted. Staffers sat straighter. Crockett's lips parted, but words took a moment. I didn't sign off on these transactions. If something slipped through, it was a flaw in the platform, not a fingerprint of intent. Don't confuse system failure with scandal. A gray-haired committee member, independent, blunt, leaned into the mic. Congresswoman Crockett, are you prepared, here and now, to swear that your campaign never knowingly accepted these funds? Crockett straightened, her right hand curling before extending. I will. I may not like the circus, but I'm not afraid of the spotlight. The clerk brought a small black Bible. Crockett placed her hand on it, nails crimson against leather. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And I hope this chamber is ready to do the same. Cameras didn't blink. Neither did O'Keefe. The tension wasn't receding, it was loading. The hall grew too quiet. Not fatigue, but transformation. What began as confrontation was turning into a tribunal of conscience. The shift came not from the dais, but from the rear doors. A woman stepped in, walking slowly, as if the truth she carried had weight. 75, draped in a weathered shawl, eyes glassy but fixed. Not famous, not political, but the room leaned in. My name is Mary Ellis. I live in Baltimore. I've never donated to a campaign, except once for my church. She pulled out a worn envelope. But according to this, I've made $18,700 in donations to Act Blue. Over 400 transactions, some hours apart. I don't know what Act Blue is, but I know I didn't give them a dime. Something broke open. The gallery, retirees, students, veterans, shifted forward. A man removed his baseball cap. A woman clutched her bank statement, trembling. Across the country, viewers leaned in, seeing their mother in Mary Ellis. O'Keefe didn't speak. He didn't need to. A second witness approached, then a third. Maryland, Arizona, Wisconsin. Same story, same pattern. Names misused, donations forged, systems gamed. The scale grew. A Coolidge-Reagan Foundation report, filed to the FEC, detailed Crockett's campaign accepting $870,000 through Act Blue, much traced to pattern fraud clusters. The chairman read, one donor, retired, 73, appears 56 times. She doesn't own a smartphone, let alone know how to donate online. Crockett said nothing, not because she was silenced, but because there was nothing left to say. Networks, CNN, MSNBC, NPR, cut to live coverage. Act Blue freeze trended. The screen showed a bulletin. Breaking, FEC suspends Act Blue's federal processing license pending audit. Gasps swept the chamber, deep, not loud. O'Keefe glanced at Benz. No words, just shared understanding. The most powerful moment came from Mary Ellis, standing again, uninvited. I came because I thought something was broken. But maybe it's not broken yet. Maybe it just needed us to speak. No one objected. The silence began to sound like judgment. The committee recessed for 12 minutes, the oxygen changing from tension to certainty. O'Keefe sat motionless, hands clasped, watching the moment he'd carved from stone, press conference by press conference, document by document, door knock by door knock. The chairman returned, expression cold, surgical. This hearing will come back into order. Based on evidence submitted, the FEC has opened a formal inquiry into Congresswoman Crockett's fundraising practices. Further, the committee recommends, in a bipartisan vote, that Act Blue's operations be suspended during the upcoming federal election cycle, pending a full audit of its donation protocols. The words landed like marble, heavy, permanent. The chairman looked at Crockett. "You have 15 days to respond, failing which formal proceedings may begin under federal campaign finance fraud statutes." She stood slowly, her red jacket too bright, like a misplaced flag on a lost battlefield. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Behind her, the Democratic bench sat, eyes averted. One reached for a water bottle, untouched for hours. Another checked her phone. They weren't with Crockett. They were elsewhere, anywhere but here. A lone clap echoed from the back, a retired postal worker who'd testified. O'Keefe turned slightly, cameras catching the acknowledgement. Then a second clap, a third. The room broke. Applause wasn't supposed to happen, but decorum had shattered, first by truth, then courage. CNN, NBC, Reuters published before the applause ended. Crockett investigated by FEC for campaign fraud. Congress recommends Act Blue suspension. Retiree testimonies prompt reform calls. As cameras zoomed on Crockett exiting, shoulders squared but hands trembling, O'Keefe remained seated. His work was done, but the movement was beginning. A week later, the headlines had shifted, but the story hadn't. It lodged in the American bloodstream. At 4:15 p.m., a Thursday, O'Keefe entered his office, light slanting through blinds in tired orange. D.C. traffic snarled outside, but inside was reverent silence. A manila envelope sat on his desk, handwritten, no return address. He opened it. A note card, neat cursive. "Mr. O'Keefe, they used my name 1,913 times. I never gave more than $20. I thought I was the only one. Thank you. You gave me back my name." He folded it carefully, as if it were breakable. On the wall, a muted TV flickered. Breaking. Representative Jasmine Crockett, suspended from House committees. FEC expands inquiry to Act Blue-linked campaigns. The screen shifted. Breaking. Massachusetts Representative Christopher Flanagan indicted for wire fraud. $36,000 stolen from Housing Association. The anchor's voice was flat, lethal. Facing 5 counts of wire fraud, Flanagan could serve up to 120 years. No debate, no spin remained. Across the country, citizens leaned forward, not from fear, but curiosity. A dam had cracked. A silence, a spell, and clarity emerged. That evening, Trump reposted Mary Ellis's testimony, no caption. Then, "They called me a fascist." That's how you know you're close to the truth. By midnight, the Act Blue fraud trended for 31 hours. Congressional Democrats entered a media freeze. In thousands of American kitchens, people talked, not about sides, but the system, and the man who refused to look away.